the biggest issue for EVs for most people is charging and the range. You know,
right.
how do I make sure there's no gas? There's a gas station every corner, but where do I charge this thing?
Well, one of the advantages, one of the things that companies have done with their modern EVs is in the infotainment system. And they're almost all have navigation systems as standard equipment, and they typically have one of the default choices in there, if you go to look for points of interest, is usually charging stations.
Yeah,
so
in fact, my Tesla, when I plan a trip, I could say, make sure to include the charging stations. It knows, okay, you're going to get to 40% at this point. You want to stop here for 20 minutes, top off, that kind of thing. And it does a pretty good job of that.
Right, and when you look at the navigation map, it'll show you a circle on there usually that shows, here's your driving radius with your current battery charge. So here's what you've got available, and they try to make it as easy and convenient as possible. It's still, it's still more challenging than finding a gas station, but that's changing. The companies are putting in more and more public charging stations all the time, and that's going to help. Part of the, up until now, it's been, kind of the classic chicken and egg problem where, it costs a lot of money to put in charging stations, especially high power charging stations. And if you don't have a lot of demand for them, it's going to be hard to make money on that business. And so now, as we're starting to get a whole bunch of new EVs coming to the marketplace, especially higher performance ones with larger batteries, we're getting more and more DC fast chargers being deployed by companies like Electrify America, ChargePoint, EVgo. And so I just wanted to touch a little bit on, kind of the difference between charging at home and those DC fast chargers. And of course, the Tesla superchargers are the ones that people probably know the best. So, you've got, with electricity, we have basically two kinds of electricity. We have direct current, which is just a constant flow of electrons, and that's what you get out of a battery, and what you usually have in most low-powered electric devices like your phone and other devices. And then you have alternating current, and with direct current, it's cheaper to do because you don't need to have the power electronics to create that sine wave in the current flow, and it works great for lower power devices. But when you get to higher power devices like the motors that propel a car, alternating current is a lot more efficient. And so you have this problem of batteries are always going to be direct current. You've got motors that are alternating current, and so you have in the car you have the power electronics that switch back and forth between DC and AC. And most, are your home charging equipment, whether you plug into just a standard 120 volt outlet in your garage, or if you have what we call a level 2 charger, which is a 240 volt charger, those are all AC. And so they go through the power electronics, gets converted to DC and charges the battery. The high power charging units like we have out in the road now, like the stuff from the superchargers, the Electrify America, all those are all DC fast chargers, and they operate at 480 volts and much higher currents as well. And so superchargers and the Tesla superchargers are about 120 kilowatts, 100 to 120 kilowatts charging capacity. And the Electrify America chargers are going up as high as 350 kilowatts. Wow. So you can get an 80% charge in about 15 minutes.
More kilowatts means faster charging.
Yeah, that's the electrical power that's going in. So the total amount of power that's going into the battery, or that comes out, from your motor when you're driving the thing. So that's helping. And then the other issue, of course, is the different connectors. Tesla unfortunately decided that they wanted to be like Apple, and they created their own proprietary charging connector when they launched the Model S, and they've used that proprietary connector on the Model X and the 3. The rest of most
you can't use an adapter though to charge a Tesla at these other charging stations, right?
Yeah, and the car does come with an adapter. You can just plug it into the connector on the car, and then you plug in the other one. So if there's not a supercharger nearby, you can go to any charging station and plug it in, and it's not a problem. And then there's what we call the SAE 1772 connector. That's the standard connector that everybody in North America uses, aside from Tesla, for 120 and 240 volt charging.
But now these new high-powered chargers are using a new system called CC. Is it CCS?
Yeah, CCS basically is an extension of that standard SAE connector. So it adds 2 more big pins to the connector, so that you for the higher power DC charging, and that so right now everybody except Tesla and unfortunately Nissan is going to that for their high power.
So if you were getting a new one, you'd probably want to look for one that supports the CCS.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And then in Europe, they have a different version of that, because in Europe, here, for AC, we have single phase AC, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but in Europe, they have 3-phase AC at home, and so they have a little bit different connector, but it's based on the same technology.
Another good question from the chat room: where's all this power come from? I mean, I know when I'm charging at home, that's coming off my bill. That's why we got solar panels, to reduce that cost, because it can be expensive to charge these cars up. Where does it come from, though, when I go to a public station? I know I pay $1 a minute or whatever.
They're usually hooked up to the public grid, to the public utility grid.
Okay.
And it varies. I mean, they increasingly, as they deploy these, especially the 350 kilowatt chargers, they're also adding battery packs to those, because there's when you're charging 350 kilowatts, you've got a lot of draw on the grid. So what they do is they have these local battery packs that give you the high power charge, and then it recharges that at a slower rate from the grid.
I love the story of Electrify America for people who don't know. When Audi got in trouble
talk about that next week.
Yeah, for Dieselgate, they were forced. This was part of the settlement. Mm-hmm. And what did you say? $2 billion they're going to spend?
Yeah, $2 billion over 4 years is what they're spending
to put these chargers in. And I think I read somewhere their plan is to have a charger within 143 miles of every person in the country.
Are 140 miles along every major transcontinental route, so along all the highways.
Got it. That makes more sense, actually.
Yeah. And then, around major urban areas, they'll be a lot closer together.
Right.
And where the power is coming from. So, in California, for example, they have some of the highest electricity rates in the country. And at peak times, it can cost you 34, as much as 40 cents a kilowatt hour, I think, in some locations. And so it can get very expensive.
Yeah, that's nutty.
But the average across the country is about just under 12 cents a kilowatt hour. And at that rate, it's much cheaper. Yeah, what I would suggest is getting there's a bunch of different level 2 home chargers that you can buy. They're about anywhere from $400 to $600.
You have to have enough amps left over.
Yeah, and you can get one of those like an Airbiquity or not Airbiquity. I can't remember that.
I might do that. One thing I would say, this sounds all very complicated. It's very simple. Once you buy an electric car, you know what you can do and you'll see where you can go to charge it. And actually, it turns out there's enough chargers now already that you don't have to worry about running out. And
for the most part, no. And especially with these longer range EVs now, it's not, when the first generation Leaf came out.
Soon it's going to be all over thanks to Electrify America, but we'll save that for another day. Sam Abuelsamid is the car guy here. He's a senior analyst at Navigant Research. Thank you, Sam.